Rome is burning, and while everyone else is panicking, a line of trained men just stands there, watching the flames climb. Why aren't they putting out the fire? They're not here to save your home. They're here to negotiate. A single man steps out of the smoke and makes you an offer while your roof collapses behind you. Sell to me right now for almost nothing, or I let it all turn to ash. That man is Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest Roman who ever lived. A man so powerful, so connected, and cash-loaded. But Crassus wasn't an emperor ruling over Rome. He was a businessman that owned Rome through property, debt, favors, and fear. But if he already had Rome in his pocket, why did he march into the eastern desert chasing something money can't buy? Sulla had just won Rome's civil war, becoming dictator of the Roman Republic. Crassus had assisted Sulla and won favor with the new leader of Rome. To secure his new position, Sulla would purge rival families from Rome by seizing their assets and exiling them from the city. Crassus saw an opportunity. Using his connections with Sulla, Crassus would buy these assets at a cheap price, amassing his own fortune. Crassus's goals soon shifted from survival to wealth concentration, but family purges were few and far between, so Crassus came up with a new method for accumulating assets. From documents created by Plutarch, Rome would experience building fires and collapse as buildings were packed tightly and built using cheap materials. So, Crassus would travel across the city, purchasing property which had collapsed. Plutarch even records one instance where Crassus purchased a property whilst it was burning. But why would Crassus purchase burning or collapsing property? The advantage was its cheap value. Many owners would rush to sell their property as they could not afford to repair it and were more than happy to sell to Crassus. However, Crassus had a trick up his sleeve. He amassed a huge workforce of architects and builders. These weren't ordinary workers, but Roman slaves. The cost of reconstruction was cheap, and work could commence as soon as the fire was put out. Crassus would then sell these properties back to Roman citizens at market value, taking profit or renting out the property, securing a revenue stream. Crassus repeated this cycle, even purchasing adjacent properties to the burning houses as terrified owners would dump them for a trifling price. Soon, Crassus had a huge portfolio of properties all across Rome. Plutarch sums up the result with a dramatic line. The largest part of Rome came into his possession, summing up just how much of Rome he eventually came to own. But something eats at the back of Crassus's mind, something money could not buy. Crassus had always dreamed of a great conquest. Having seen the rise of Pompey as a great military general, he wished for his own success. And so, Crassus placed himself in charge of crushing the slave revolt led by Spartacus, which he did, violently. Crassus thought he would gain credit for the crushing defeat and be written into the history books. However, Pompey returns to Rome and takes all the credit for the victory. A bitter rivalry soon brews between Pompey and Crassus. Soon, Crassus witnessed Caesar's rise to fame with his crushing victories in Gaul. Envy grew, and Crassus wanted glory, and owning most of Rome would not satisfy him. He wanted glory on the battlefield. In 54 BC, he takes Syria, not to govern, to finally be a name people fear. He initiates an unprovoked war with neighboring Parthia. Parthia had a decent army, but their strength was the horse archers and armored cavalry, great on open plains. Before leaving Syria's capital, Crassus is faced with two options for invading Parthia. He could take the long route via the Armenian mountains, utilizing the support from King Artavasdes of Armenia, or the faster route via Mesopotamia, straight towards Parthia. Crassus chooses to chase glory over strategy and marches across Mesopotamia. He finally meets the Parthians at the Battle of Carrhae. Now is his chance for glory. However, by the end of the battle, Crassus would find glory had evaded him yet again. At the Battle of Carrhae, Crassus and his legions are drawn away from the safer river route onto the open plains, right into the trap of the Parthians. They are able to use their fast-moving cavalry effectively against the slow-moving legions. The battle is a decisive Roman defeat, with Crassus losing his son, Publius. During the negotiations, Crassus dies in a scuffle. And legend has it that the Parthians, knowing the man they had killed, poured molten gold down his throat, so that in death, the richest man in Rome could finally have his fill.